this year, I wanted to do things differently. I wanted to make plans early, set my goals for the year before the year even began, like I normally would do. But instead, I spent the end of my last year visiting my friends in Dublin. No regrets, it was amazing. I told myself I'll sit down and plan the year in the first week of January, then I fell sick. I caught the flu that's been going around in the UK and I felt terribly sick. Weeks have passed, I haven't touched my plans, and just like that, I procrastinated my yearly planning without meaning to. This year did not start with the momentum or motivation that I would have liked. It started with rest, recovery, and falling behind my own expectations. But I am doing it regardless. Let's get into it. The first thing I always do at the start of the new year is a review of the one I've just had. I usually use a tool called the Year Compass, but there are lots of different ways to do it. Personally, I find it easiest to scroll through my camera roll, take stock of what I did, the habits I had, and the people I spent time with. It's a pretty extensive process, but it helps me notice milestones I might have forgotten, where I fell short on my goals, and even the seasons where I seemed happier than others. It also goes into more details to ask you questions around who you spend the most time with, who you would want to spend the most time with in the year going forward, and just general observations that really just allows you to reflect. But like you will see later on in this vlog, I check in on those specific aspects throughout the year. So for this year, I have not gone through the extensive list, but I will link it in the comments if you are interested in using it. Reflecting like this helps me understand what was happening in my life and who I was surrounded by during those moments. Once I've done this, it helps me set my goals for the new year with a clearer mindset so I can repeat what worked and reprioritize what did not work. The next step is to take those observations with me and sit with them for a while. On a different day, I come back to actually plan for the year ahead. So planning for the year usually means writing down my goals and breaking them into actions. You can do this however you like. You can use a notes app, a Notion board, or like me, a Trello board. The goals you're seeing here are not my actual goals. They're just examples for the sake of this video. What I really recommend is writing out your goals and then listing the specific actions required to achieve them. I usually split my goals across different quarters of the year so I don't overwhelm myself, and I take into account what else I have going on. For example, if work is specifically busy, if there's a birthday coming up or a big event on the horizon, I also think about the weather when I'm setting my goals. For instance, I wouldn't start a 6 a.m. gym routine in January when it's miserable here in the UK. I'll push that to around March or April time instead. You can go into as much or as little detail as you want at this stage, but the most important thing for you to do is write down your actions and not just your goal. And when it comes to actually executing these goals, you will then take each and every one of your actions and spread it across the year. You can be as extensive as you want at this stage, but the ultimate mission is to make sure you're leaving this session with very, very clear objectives and just easy, digestible actions that you can actually use to execute them. So that is what I do for this portion of the planning stage, and then I go into the next step, which is a very significant step in the whole process, and that is journaling and checking in. I use this to check in on unforgettable and significant moments randomly. I use this one to check in every month. I ask myself 5 key questions every month, which I'll show you later. This is my weekly journal. I had been using my previous one for about 4 years, and I got gifted this one for Christmas. I'm very happy. I love her so much. And finally, this is the 6-minute diary. A lot of us know this one. It's very similar to the 5-minute journal. I try to use it almost every day, but I am not that consistent, but I have been trying. And here I am just writing into all of my journals. This felt so fulfilling, being able to write on all of them in one day. It definitely was a very long day, but it felt right because I had just set my goals and I had all this energy just ready to go into the new year. So the 5 questions I ask myself at the end of every month is 5 things I will be repeating, 5 things I won't be repeating, my absolute win, my absolute lesson, and a reflection sentence. I started doing this last year because I noticed that the quarterly check-ins just felt a bit far and I wasn't keeping track of things that were happening in my life, and it felt really good to do this at the end of every month. I think I only skipped 1 month, and yeah, I highly recommend. The final part of my planning is what I like to call the aesthetic stage. My brain truly appreciates this part, the vision board. I go into Pinterest and start selecting images that reflect the goals I've written down. Then I gather them all together. I take these images into Canva and create a visually pleasing board, which I usually set as my desktop background. Again, for this video, these are just example pictures. These pictures do not reflect my actual goals for the year. I think this step is really important because it gently reminds you of the plans and the dreams you have for yourself. And it turns abstract goals into something visual and motivating, which you can look at every day and feel inspired by. Another thing that I do is I choose a word for the year. My word for last year was blooming, and boy did I bloom. I achieved every single goal I set for myself last year, and it required a lot of hard work from me. This year, my word is discovering. I simply want to discover who I am post-immigration, outside of the hustle and bustle. I want to try out more things for the fun of it. I want to just discover who I am again, really. I really suggest this step. I think it's really helpful to constantly look at one single word and just assess whether you are working in alignment with what that word is. For example, if your word is slowing down, it's also a good opportunity to check if you are actually slowing down throughout the year. that's done, you should be ready to kickstart actioning your goals for the year. I hope you found this useful. I hope you learned something from this video. Please like this video, share, and drop a comment if that's you. And please do follow my channel to see more content like this. Thank you very much. I'll see you in my next one.